against the evil horde in humanity's last stand. So these are a few different takes, and this was our final piece. And so we made sure that every one of our themes for the Gears franchise was represented well. We have a few additional themes as well, like we try to keep the Simpson Omen tickled in, that branding mark, wherever we can, but we don't always worry about it being there. It's not really identified with the story, so much as the feel and the maturity of the story. And of course, our chainsaw is our Lancer. Our Lancer is our lightsaber. I want that on every picture that we can do it. Although it's really strange, in European PR, I can put my game box with the cool little teeth of the chainsaw, but I can't have a poster next to it with the chainsaw teeth. I don't understand. Y'all may be aware that we didn't sell Gears of War 1 in Germany, and we're not here at the Leipzig show as a result of the interesting laws here. Okay, so we're not a real good fit for the RSK. All right, so and then taking cover is something that if you've ever played the game, it's a very big part of Gears of War. You're constantly hiding behind cover, popping out, taking a few shoots. We call it stop and pop gameplay as opposed to running guns. It's a little bit more tactical. We tried to show that, and you have Dom here, how well you can see it, taking standing cover, leaning over, and we try to keep that element in where we can. If you saw our cinema ad, Mad World, which was pretty darn popular, there were something like 40,000 versions of it up on YouTube with people's different music, up to and including the Benny Hill song. This really slow, morbid piece where he's all alone. That's the one thing that we didn't get into this ad. We thought a lot about it, but we decided that having Marcus as our badass anti-hero was more important than showing that he was part of the team in this one, because we wanted that feeling of desolation. So he's running through a beautiful city that's been destroyed. It's just him, and then the monsters keep coming and coming. There's your nightmare in the dark. And I think it was really successful, not just as an ad, but also as something that represented our game. Okay. So making a sequel to a game is always difficult, and with one with high expectations, a little tougher, especially because of the sort of arms race we're seeing in video game development and have been for the last 10 to 15 years. Games do not compete in fun experience, unfortunately. They compete in the number of weapons. And unfortunately, it's easy for someone to compare this game to that game and says this one has 10 multiplayer levels. This has 29. So clearly this game must be better. If you can imagine that movies competed in this way, well, sure, Schindler's List is good, but I know this 3.5-hour-long movie. Think of the value you're getting for your $10. Wow, that's an extra hour. That's 30. It doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, we still find ourselves competing this way. My first job in the games industry was, I'm proud to say, at Electronics Boutique selling software. I lied and said I was 16, and I was not. And I sold video games on 3.5-inch discs, not 5.25, sorry, 3.5-inch discs and CD-ROMs for $60. And y'all know that the budgets have gone crazy. We're making games for 20 times that at least in this time frame. But the amount of revenue in the games industry, at least in the U.S., really hasn't increased very much at all over the past 10 years or so. And the gamer population, the size of people, the number of people who are buying games hasn't gone up that much. It's certainly gone up. It's a bigger industry, but it hasn't blossomed by 20 times so that everybody buys video games. And so if you put all that together, you're having people spend more money making games, competing for a smaller share, and well, competing in length is a really bad idea when you're having a market that's squeezing out anything that it hits. So when we thought about this, it's like, all right, we have to compete in quality, not size. If you play Team Fortress 2, great example, this ship with like 6 maps, but they're all really, really fun. Some of them are remakes, but they're all really fun, and it's a great game online. You don't need 38 maps to sell their experience. Okay, so unfortunately, as much as we don't want to play the game of, Call of Duty had this many guns, and this one had this many guns, and how many will you have, you can't escape that comparison when you do a sequel. That's something well, this was new to us. Everyone expects more from the sequel. You have to. They want it to be 30% longer, or you don't get the same review score. So we're all scared to death that we're going to make a game that is really, really better than Gears of War 1. I know it's prettier. I know it's faster. I know it's more fun. I know it's likely to be longer, and still I'm worried that we're not going to get the review scores we did from the first one because everyone has these increased expectations from us. Everyone thinks the game's already good. Well, you just take the first game and slap some stuff onto it, right? Add a few more maps and you can ship it. But what really happens is that you generally have less time, right? We probably had, I don't know how many years, call it 4, call it 6, whatever, of this idea rolling around in the back of Cliffy's head thinking, oh, it'd be really cool to make a game where things come from under the ground, right? You have this long pre-production stretch of time. We were working on all their games, and people were experimenting with some neat ideas, some visuals. We did a lot of stuff and threw it all away and tried again. I can't do that this time because we decided to have the next game out in 24 months. So we didn't even get much pre-production time because you're used to having that kind of thing where we can experiment around, try some wacky ideas. But we've got a timetable, and so it was really challenging for us to eke out proper pre-production time on a sequel. At least we decided that we weren't going to compete in size with ourselves. We weren't going to try to have double the guns and double the time and everything else, but compete with offering really new experiences that we didn't offer before in Gears of War 1. Unfortunately, with all of our pre-planning, this was the thing that we were shouting from the rooftops when we talked about what Gears of War 2 would be. So we didn't listen to ourselves. Trying to say that we're going to take our last game and make it bigger and better, well, we set ourselves up for quite a challenge. Of course, we succeeded. No, I'm just kidding. Who knows? We'll see in a couple months. So here's an example. I don't know if everybody can read the text, so I'll abbreviate it. The great guys at Control Delete made this comic where Cliff is saying, how will we make Gears 2 bigger? And some unnamed executive at Epic, I can't imagine who it would be, is going, what are we going to do? We're going to get a chainsaw, man. And over here you can see, quite unrealistically, Cliff slapping with the front of his hand because he backhands me when he's upset. I've got ideas, and then the trainsaw is our plan. So clearly we will have a trainsaw in our game. Look for it. But so they know, the comic artists know, at least I would have gotten the reviewers know, that you can't always compete with yourself. Okay. So there's 4 different ways to live through an arms race, as far as I can tell, and these lessons are borrowed from the war, which I talked about. Anyway, have the best guns is the first one. As long as you've got the best game with the most stuff in it, that works just fine. You can win the arms race. Or you can go with the most guns. So you can have, let's call it old EA production budgets back in the big day where you had 300 people on a James Bond project or something like that. They're really tough to compete with as well. Our plan is to sell guns, and this is working really well with Unreal Engine. So everybody else can fight it out all they want, and we'll just sell the Unreal Engine and watch all the fray. But then the fourth way is to just save it. Lucas, sorry, this supposed to be nice. I think we have a great plan. It's not to apologize for. Just skip the war entirely. And that's the thing we keep trying to do. Well, a little bit of this and sell some technology, but then we're trying to do this one here, is just skip the war entirely and just focus on fun per minute. And we'll see if that works when review time comes around. So how do we do it? The do better, more plan. If I'd known I'd be giving a presentation about this 2 years later, I would have come up with some really cool scientific sounding name. I've got a PhD or whatever, right? But anyway, do better, more is what we called it. I apologize for that. So we took our game and we broke it down into a bunch of different gameplay systems. And I'm going to walk you through sort of our process of how we analyze Gears and look to improve it, and then jump into a few systems to give you some detail on that. So we just took each of these systems, like AI and our cover system and multiplayer, and brainstormed what we loved about it, what was fun, what made it Gears of War-ish, or whatever, what made it fit our franchise, what could we have improved, and believe me, our worst critics are the guys at the Epic office who hate to see it go, but we certainly read their forums and got hints from reviewers online. And then, as we did we talked about how do we do more of this? Okay, so everybody loved cover and thought it was really good. How do we make it better, more fun, more intuitive? How do we make more things that aren't cover but are like cover that fit Gears of War and our franchise? And then we take all that list, and once we'd come up with this, we'd look at how that fit with our themes to make sure we weren't adding laser rifles, pew-pew, or whatever, when that wasn't fit with our franchise. So we started with our design cabal, which is like Cliff and me, level designer, producer, lead programmer, talking about what these areas would be. And then for each area, we handed that off to the technical team responsible for it. So we handed off to the multiplayer guys or the gameplay guys who are most responsible for bot AI or whatever else, and have them be the ones who do this deep analysis of what would be cool, what sucked. And then once they finish that, we go through and look for categorizing it into these 3 new, better, and more categories. We take off all the impossible stuff, like train guns, for example, and then we share the list throughout the whole company, because we want everybody to have a chance to say, you completely missed it, but if only we had monster trucks, this would have been the coolest thing ever. And so, well, that's their chance to talk about monster trucks. And then it came back up to the design cabal, and we picked the top 5 new things, the top 5 better things, the top 5 do more of it things for each one of these areas. So it's sort of a prioritization system Why 5 of each, not treating war as more important than new, completely arbitrary. Then we argued like crazy for like 2 weeks about the monster trucks being in the game or not being in the game or whatever else.